This episode of PTG is brought to you by HK Army and all of my paintball teams out there. It is time to take your game to the next level. Get laced up for the 2025 season with the HK Army sponsorship package, your ultimate gateway to custom gear, elite equipment, and unparalleled exposure. Stand out on the field with custom designed jerseys and gear featuring your team's branding alongside the iconic HK Army logo. Your team's style with our innovation. Boost your brand's exposure and get featured across HK Army's massive social platforms, reaching millions of fans worldwide. Be a part of the conversation in the paintball community with HK Army. Get access to the elite gear, high-performance markers, cutting-edge protection, paintballs, and the latest technology to help your team dominate the competition. Join a vibrant community of top-tier teams and players. Connect, share experiences, and participate in exclusive HK Army events. This is more than a sponsorship. It is truly a family. Don't wait. Sign up your team right now at hkarmy.com/sponsorship and gear up for the 2025 paintball season. HK Army, lace up, stand out, dominate. Go to hkarmy.com/sponsorship to get your team signed up right now. This episode is brought to you by Lone Wolf Paintball. They are an amazing online supplier and have been around since the beginning of the game as Michigan's premier paintball field and paintball supplier since 1987. They are rapidly expanding into the online retail space and supplying everything you need to be the best paintball player you can be. They have got it all. Head over to lonewolfpaintball.com and shop all of your favorite brands. And they also boast amazing customer service and will have this out to you with same-day shipping, which is amazing. It's always nice to know that your stuff is on its way immediately so you can start to use it that very next weekend of play. Check out their YouTube, Lone Wolf Paintball, and their Instagram, @LoneWolfPB, and stay up to date with all of their deals and sales. Play the Game podcast is immensely honored to have them on board, and we cannot wait for you guys to check out lonewolfpaintball.com and become a part of their community.
What's going on, PTG Nation? Thank you guys so much for tuning in and rocking with us. This episode, we have the legend Mike Hinman, undoubtedly somebody who has cultivated more of the professional paintball players and top professional players than anybody else in the game of paintball. He is now the new head coach of the LA Collision team based out of the WCPPL arenas. So without further ado, we're going to hop in the show.
That was an insane inside move by Marcelo Margot. Great communication.
And the crowd starts chanting Harman.
Great shot by all the guys. So Tyler Harman saved that game.
He came out with 2 wins. Marcelo Margot was on fire.
Welcome, everyone. Happy February. It is moving closer and closer towards event number 1. We got the legend in the house, the one and only Mike Hinman. What's up, dude?
He's back, baby.
How you doing, brother?
Let's go. Doing good. How you doing?
Just happy to be back, being the 3rd member of the team.
Yeah, baby. Run it.
Love it, dude. Always part of the squad, Mike. Mike actually bailed us out this morning, per usual.
Yeah.
He's been bailing us out since we were kids. But, old Todd Martinez was supposed to be on the show this morning. And this morning he's like, we got some shit going on at the field. I gotta head up there. Gotta cancel. I was like scrambling. I'm like, you know what? I know who to hit up.
He's a busy
trusty, man. Old Hinge. Mike's like, say less. I got to drop my kid off at school. I'll be back at around 8:10. I got you guys.
And here I am.
Yeah.
There he is.
I was gonna go to SC today too, but I was like, we'll just do that tomorrow.
Yeah, I'm sure
Had 2
you're
more
busy
days.
getting ready. You got Dub C's on the horizon as well. And there are people that are extremely excited. The media has been rolling. Everyone is eager to get out there. I was actually training with some players out at BKW out here in Arizona recently, and they're all super excited to get to your event. So let's kind of just dive into it, Mike. What's going on this year? You got some big events happening, couple little changes on like venue location and things like that. I think you're going to be at SC, and I guess we'll give them the whole scoop right here.
Yeah, I mean, USXBL starts first. Actually, we're back at Fit for event 1. Texas, we added the giant location that Billy and Mark now own. Gio's old location out there. So we're going
out there this weekend, actually,
for the big pro practice.
Yeah.
So there's Fit, Giant, San Antonio, and then back to Fit for our last one. So we spread out a little bit out there. I mean, I think when you run a regional league, everybody asks why you don't go to more locations. And when you run the league, I think you look at it from the opposite side as just what locations can you go to? Like who has the infrastructure to be able to handle an event of whatever size you run? Kind of like in California, you know, like, why don't we go here? Why don't we go there? And you're like, how many locations have 4 turf pads? Because we don't grow grass out here because it never seems to rain. You know what I mean? Like, so if you don't have 4, you just can't do it. I mean, we got creative before. We're even in Arizona where we ran 2 at Rothy's at Battle Zone and 1 at Wild West 30 miles away or whatever it was. So, I mean, for us, just finding locations to be able to do it. But USXBL, we have that. And then WC this year, we're not at ASG. They elected not to have us back. So we're at 2 at SC, first and last, and then 2 up at Glenn's, which we've always kind of planned on Glenn's being our summer events, right? It's just crazy hot in the summer everywhere, but especially out here. And Glenn's is consistently 10, 15, 20 degrees cooler ambush in the summer, and it's a beautiful location, right? Like,
I love going there too. Yeah, you know, my family's up there, my older brother, all of his kids, so get to kind of see them. And yeah, I think Glenn's Field is beautiful. Love when it's out there.
You
got
can
the
literally
pizza joint up there.
I was gonna say, I went there last time we were there when it opened. Went there multiple times. But I mean, it's a pretty cool field, right? You can literally see the ocean 15, 20 miles away from the field, like it's on the side of a mountain that just looks out. Pretty cool location to have a paintball field. So that's what we have going there. Just busy, right? Paintball on our side, both of our leagues numbers are up. We're happy about that. You know, I think a lot of us in paintball, the industry, if you will, especially on the event side, but also just the industry side, last year was a tough year, right? It's an election year. And all of us aren't, sorry, I heard a kickback.
Should be good.
Yeah, let's see. We got you. We didn't hear it on our end. Are we echoing for you?
Yeah, it was something that's off now. You're good. But I think, you know, we all wondered in the industry how bad was it the election year? Was it just the economy? Was it a new reality that we're facing, right? I mean, paintball over the years has gone up, gone down, gone up, right? It's definitely economy reliant, right? The better times are, paintball does better. You know, no matter where you sit on the spectrum of the political aisles, you know, we cannot say the last year was great for paintball. The manufacturers would say it, right? So I think we've all been waiting to see even the NXL numbers, right? Like how event 1 would look. For us, it's up. For them, it's up. So it's a good thing, right? It kind of bucks the trend of what we're seeing. You know, paint manufacturers, I know, I feel like, you know, I know for a fact that everybody lies in our industry and says, you know, like, you guys see it, right? Like, how's business? Oh, it's great, man. You're like, that's weird because, you know, you're not running paint machines over there. You're not running 6-7 days a week. Like, do you know what I mean? Like when people say things are good, you know, they're absolutely not true. And when they say things have been a little rough, you're like, okay, this guy might be actually telling the truth. So yeah, I mean, I think we're all coming out of this haze of the election year, hoping it's a better time. And paintball is always interesting too. The amount of people you see recycle back too, you know what I mean? Whether they've been out for 2 or 3 or 4 years, you know, like our league phone or, you know, iPhone that deals with it, that has all the push notifications, you'll see an ID card payment pop up and you see the name and you're like, man, I haven't seen that name in a while. And then you go look it up real quick and you're like, he hasn't played in 4 years, you know? So I think as an industry too, just trying to see what we can do, obviously as a sport and an industry, to provide value to keep people back playing, right? And I think on our side, the big realization over the last year or two has been the culture side of things, right?
Absolutely.
Because we all go to events, we all do the whole thing, but you know, it's the off the field stuff as well. And especially a lot of teams maybe don't have aspirations of being on Impact or Dynasty or whatever the team is. They just want to play paintball with their friends and have fun. So how can all of us from the regional level up to the national level continue to provide a great product and a value in the product that we're providing so people are having fun, right? And I think totally understand why the industry showcases our pro guys, right? Because it's pro paintball. The problem I think we run into as an industry is when we're doing nothing to speak of for the guys that are paying and the backbone that we're walking on, that becomes difficult, right? Like
Yeah. Yeah, we
I
got to
think
make sure the
NXL
foundation.
level, a lot of guys are up at the top, right? Watching the top guys. The tough part becomes when you go down to the 13th field at World Cup, you notice a drop off sometimes, not just in quality control, right? So I think for all of us working on that value, USXBL, WCPL, we're going to be like webcasting or live streaming every field out with an announcer, cameras on every field. If
That's
it's
so sick.
the Twisted Kids playing against the Aftermath kids in D4, there's an ability to go talk to the announcer before, like, hey, if you want to put numbers on your hopper, we know who's who, and we can actually call people out, because I think there's some value to that. Again, is it the show that the NXL puts on? Absolutely not, right? But is it still a good show that we're going to put on and hopefully others are putting on to just provide more value and more shine, right? When we were kids, if you made it in a magazine, that was pretty cool. You know what I mean? Now we have no magazines to speak of, short of Phrase doing it twice a year, I believe.
Yep.
Great American Paintball, whoever you want to call that, but Phrase and them behind it. We don't have a lot. So a lot of it's now social media, video, pictures, but I feel like video is taking that over, right? So making sure we get as many of those people out there as possible.
Couldn't agree more, man. And also from just the local aspect of it, like obviously we want to grow the tournament scene and make the tournament scene as quality as we possibly can, but we got to really make sure that we're nurturing the local fields. And we were kind of talking about it, prior to getting on the show, is like, we need more paintball parks to open up in more areas that nurture to the base foundation of our game. Otherwise, we're not going to have any tournament paintball players, if we don't really nurture that foundation of the game.
Yeah. I mean, an interesting number is like the Tampa event, right? I think there's only 4 or 5 Division 5 X-Ball teams signed up. It's not a good, when your bottom level starts to dwindle down, that's not a good look. Again, none of this is a shot at Tom. Also, that could be because MVPS and Jason Edwards got a league now out there, that there's a lot of local, regional level guys staying there, getting better in the tide pools, if you will, growing, and then getting out into the big water where the big guys are, right? Division 4 takes a huge jump up, but it's just like you're saying, we have to nurture that, and it's an expensive game to play, right? Like a lot of the divisional teams, it's not that much more to play Division 3 than it is to be a pro paintball player these days. I mean, they maybe play 6, 7, 8, 10 less points. Entry fees, $400, $500 difference, $600 difference. It's not half the price, right? Like and none of them are getting sponsorship, which not saying you should, but they're paying for everything out of pocket. It's just a very expensive game to play.
It is. And yeah, we got to make sure that we're taking care of the game. And I think it's going to be really cool to see the youngsters and all the lower divisions get the hype on the Dub C. Is going to have a nice live feed.
For us, we're really big on like making sure guys move out as they do good, right? The APPA. I hear a lot of people complain about APPA, right? And I just totally disagree, to be honest with you, because you're totally right. There's a point structure and it ranks guys out. But if Tyler and Marcelo, if you guys make your own league, you can go to Chris and say, hey, I want Division 3 to be this. It doesn't have to be, it's not like a one size fits all for everybody. If you don't know how to run a tournament league, Chris at APPA is giving you a system that has everything you need included. But if you live in Georgia, where maybe your highest level's D4, like Texas, we only really had 5 and 4, and then D3 struggled for so many years. Now we opened our D3 points up. So if somebody wants to stay D3, they can stay there for virtually ever. Now, if they go D2 at NXL and do good, then they're going to rank themselves out, and we're okay with that. If you have the money and the time to go do that, go do that. You know what I mean? But if you can't, every league can talk to Chris, like our premier division. It's as many 4,800 and under, which is semi-pro all the way through, and one guy that's 48 to 8,000, which basically excludes you guys. I'm not going to mention the guy that left your team that hasn't won in a while, that's under the 8,000 threshold and will be able to play. But
one of the originals you made the rule for.
And it's funny because we knew it was coming too. Like we've been watching Mouse's profile, and like APPA, everything's in the rule book, right? Like if you haven't, for him, right, last time he won, I think was with Impact. You go back, that was like 22. Well, now we're in 25. It's been 3-4 years. And I'm like, man, I'm looking at his points and doing the math. And I like send Chris a message and I'm like, hey, this is Alex Goldman's profile. He's over 8,000 right now. next year, where will he be? And he's like, under 7,000. And I was like,
Shit.
And I can't just change the rule because of him, but you can, I mean, end all be all, you can do what you want. What's interesting, as I digress there, is in the lower division, seeing teams move up. We're like, if we did a play the game power rankings, who do we think is going to be the best D5 or D4 team? You have no clue, because there's so much movement in the divisions, right? Your top teams, like we talked about earlier, iconic Thomas Taylor Sons team, Silly Bananas that won the overall, the Lords, which is Spica's team, they're all out. So now you have this whole Division 5 that it could be a team from Vegas, it could be a team from anywhere, right? Like you just don't know who's going to be. And I think that's really cool, right? Like,
yeah, absolutely.
To see, I mean, obviously, Tyler, you're down at BKW last weekend working with a bunch of teams down there. You're like, man, this one team's going to be good. I see some at SC. Marcelo might see some, but we just don't know. So I think the opportunity, kind of like when Fit and Blast Camp left semi-pro, how many teams flooded up because it's our year, right?
Oh, 100%. And then it actually, like this year, it seems like it felt like it was going to be a wide open year. And now there's all this saturation back in the semi-pro division.
What's interesting, right? Shock pulls Thomas Taylor in to help lead that thing. The Wrecking Crew, I mean, to not say that the Wrecking Crew are the favorites would just be not being real to the situation, right? Does that mean they're going to win it or somebody else can't beat them? Absolutely not. But there's also that like level of showing respect to the guys that have been there, right? They won 2 events last year. Yeah. Right. I think you could probably think some of the top 5 teams, but then I look through the rosters and you're like, man, these guys picked up a pro, and these guys, like Texas, you see FSU.
Hey, Mike, I want to talk to you about something, because this kind of seems a little crazy what's going on right now. And, my message to Wrecking Crew or any of the teams is, so what, beat them. But it does seem kind of unfair. And if I owned a semi-pro team, well, you do now. You are working with a semi-pro team. So they're like trying to kind of change the rules to fit the Blast Camp players' needs that weren't able to find a team. Are you familiar with this, with what's going on?
When Will Ball for Soup dropped it that Sunday, we were at practice, and all of a sudden my phone started lighting up with screenshots of it.
Yeah.
Luckily, I'm in a position that I can just make the call to Tom, and I did, and he answered on a Sunday, and they were still working on it. To be totally fair, that roster that was posted with 4 or 5 pro players on it, 4 or 5 black pro players, which I believe if you don't play for a whole season, like Ben Challenger was on Ology last year, he's still over 4,800 points, but he's now ranked as a semi-pro, right? But because those guys played pro last year, they're all ranked there. And Tom and I talked about, first of all, Tom said that was an APPA issue.
Yeah.
Don't quote me here, but I believe on the back end of APPA, again, we're talking about these leagues. We have a play the game league. So when Chris moves those parameters in his system on the back end, because it's an actual system on the back end that has code written to it and all that, way above our pay grade, he has it for indefinite or has it for 1 year. So if you do something at the end of the year, the rankings will go back to standard, and then he has to change them back. As I understood it, that Blast Camp roster, which I believe would have been Distortion because they're from out there.
Yeah, correct.
Was because Chris set it for 1 year and instead of indefinitely. So it was more of an, not a software error. It just hadn't been updated. Since then, I've talked to Tom about it again. And I believe, I don't know if they've announced it. He seems to announce everything on Spick and Span show, which is odd, but he had said that they were going to do something to the effect of if you've won less than 25 points as a pro, because now all of you are individually tracked and ranked as players, how many points won, points played, all that. So I started going through like local guys, right? Like we have Zach Carter from FSU. That team's gone. Look at he's got over 25 points won. I think no matter where they draw the line, somebody's going to be pissed off on one side or the other.
Here's the issue though, Mike. It was originally 15. And then this year they decided to change it to 25. Now, first of all, I think even 15 points won is not, I don't think that's a good metric. It should be points played. You still learn in points played. Like just because you didn't win the point, I don't love that.
Here's the other side of that though, is that any team that wins in 25, 26, 27, all the way down the road, like they got to play against you guys. So if the wrecking crew, and again, let's just use wrecking crew, right?
Mhm.
You're one of their coaches. They're good guys. We all like the wrecking crew guys. If they have the ability to pick up 5 pro guys to win semi-pro and then go into the pro division, they're going to need it. They're going to need it because leverage is going to have their handful this year, right? Like, I mean, look at Fit did well. God bless them. They're the only team like that that's ever won an event, by the way.
Totally.
Let's just put that out there.
Yeah.
I mean,
and you could argue they weren't really a rookie team. Some of those guys were in the pro division a few years ago.
Pretty much the core of the team was, right? And then came down and then went back up. But let's look at Blast Camp, right? They got second place all the way through every event. Fit first, them second. We all know the story. We all know the thing. But you can't say Blast Camp. Well, I was going to say we all know Chanel too now because of it, the cheerleader lady. But you know what I mean? She's good people. But but you can't say Blast Camp didn't deserve to be a pro team, right? I think all of us that talk, the real ones in the industry, the pro guys, say that like you could possibly do the top 2 semi-pro teams, right? It doesn't have to just be one. You could make a valid argument most years that 2 or 3 of those teams would compete decently well, like some of the bottom pro teams do. So they go up. Within 1 year, Virgil pulls the plug on it. And Virgil has an apparatus to pay for it like Fit does. He has a field. He runs a field. His son's on the team, like the Fit guy's dad, you know, JD kids. We all same thing. They had a league to help pay for the team. And after 1 year, and I talked to Virgil after he pulled the plug and his guys went to Heat. After 1 year, you're talking to a guy that's a field owner, an industry guy, an intelligent guy, just looked at it and was like, man, I can't, this doesn't even make sense for me. You know what I mean? So my point of it is if we're grooming, tough word to use, but we are, semi-pro teams to want to be pro teams, fair. If you want it fair, go play D2, kids. But if like what, we don't want any pros and semi-pro, but next year we're going to have to play.
We want to be pro.
And here's the tough part. I remember
I'm with you.
Big Art from Rage, right? Mendoza. Yeah. When the whole 7-man was like relegating and there was talks of relegation there, like he said, he's like, well, how do you build an organization if we have one bad year and I get thrown out? He's like, now it's a win now league. And in that same mindset, how are we not in a win now position for semi-pro?
Yeah.
If you're going to be semi-pro, you better expect. And on top of that, if you're the best semi-pro team, you're going to have to be good because you know half the pro teams are going to come cherry pick your team because there's no protection to help them. So, I mean, when we talk about fair, if you can't handle not fair, then just don't play semi-pro. Go play down and play D2 where it's like a little softer in there. If you're getting ready to be a pro, there's nothing that's going to prepare you to be a pro. But man, if you're not ready, if you don't have the absolute deepest roster you can have, like a true semi-pro roster, true semi-pro with very little pro experience is going to have a hard time winning in the pro division. And I watch our semi-pro guys playing against the Ironmen the other week, and you just watch the little things, the guys that have been in the pro division for years and years, the ability to hold lanes and just really how quick they are in their decision-making skills, you notice a difference. You know what I mean? So I think if any semi-pro team can pick up like Jackpot down in San Antonio, right? Good guys, divisional team. FSU breaks up. There's a bunch of local pro-level players now. Take all of them and build a team. That's just my opinion. You know what I mean? Like, I understand the rule change. If you're going to go from 15 to 25, then my question would be, what makes it 25? Why not just make it the bottom 10 pro teams become semi-pro at the end of the year? Because definitely 5 of them could. So
yeah,
tough. No matter where you draw a line in the rules.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like the right thing to do to make a rule change this late in the off season to accommodate a certain group of players when they all knew and understood the risk of buying a pro spot. Just like, you know, when you're coaching a kid, if he gets offered on a pro team, might not get a lot of play time. You're like, hey, you're going to ruin your ranking, but that's your risk to take. And if you're building, you know, you're a paying customer through the ranks, you're building a semi-pro team. Maybe you don't want to compete in pro, maybe because actually what has been sold to certain semi-pro teams about quote unquote prize money is earning a pro spot is of value. You can sell that spot and basically it makes all of your commitment worth it. Well, what if you just wanted to sell the spot, you know? And so now again, you're kind of being put at a disadvantage. Now, Mike, I'm with you. I'm actually kind of fighting an argument for Big Rob loves you. putting you on blast, Big Rob from Wrecking Crew, but he's gonna listen to this and be like, damn it, I'm gonna stop complaining about it.
Well, no, it's just tough because if you're going in,
yeah.
man, it's gonna be rough. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, God bless Fit, and if you don't like Fit, there's something wrong with you, right? Like, those dudes are the epitome, the grit of what being a paintball player is. Like, I see there's somebody from back home that constantly like trolls them that the refs are on their side, and you're like, and the first 4 events they didn't have a great year, but they showed up at World Cup when anybody can win it, and they were the actual only team that's ever done it, and they put the time in. You know what I mean? And like, short of them, you're gonna have a heart like. And I'm not throwing stones at anybody. Every first-year pro team, and like Aftermath, they've rendition or versions of Aftermath have always surprised somebody once, but after that, now you have videotape on that young team that comes out of nowhere, and everybody's breaking down that videotape, and they're like, okay, they're super defensive, they're very disciplined, whatever it is. J-Rab said it right about the Aftermath guys in Vegas years ago. Donanucci's squad, like, they'll never do this again. And a lot of those Aftermath guys took it real personal. But it was true. They never could do it again because now you guys have the ability to break that tape down. And it's just a whole different level at the pro level. If you're going into there, if you're going to buy a pro, like the Sea Dogs, they're going to have their hands full. You know what I mean? Like, it's the dream, right? It's the dream to be a pro. And I've always said this, but then it becomes a nightmare because you realize like, but it does, like, you guys play paintball at a level that like you almost kind of keep it a little bit secret, right? Like, Marcelo, you got to smile. You can't be the guy you are in the pit. Tyler, you got to turn those crazy eyes off, especially for the show, because these normal people can't take the monster that hides behind the eyes. It's true, though, is it not? Like, when we really get on that field, right? My passion and emotion gets captured and definitely criticized, right? But we all have it. And it's very competitive up there. You know what I mean? Like, and I don't think if Marcelo's your coach or Tyler's your coach and I play against you guys, it still does not prepare you for the level and speed in which every team that moves up, right? Like when Cyrus last year got on Fit, I messaged the kid, hey man, 2 ears, 1 mouth, listen twice as much as you talk, observe, absorb, take it in the first year. Great guy, right? Messaged him after World Cup about the, him and BJ getting suspended for a match, right? But I genuinely respect it. And even he'll admit, he'd be like, it was different than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
So I think for semi-pro teams, if you can add every bit of player, because even if you got 5 good guys in this league, you got to have 7 or 8, right? I mean, look at Impact. You guys lose Mouse, and you guys are still looking to pick up multiple more players because while your 5 guys are amazing, if you don't have 6, 7, and 8, you're probably in trouble, right? Somebody gets dinged up, injured, you just get tired. You have to have depth.
So true, man. Yeah, this is actually a perfect segue for what we were talking about before heading on the show, is like building winning organizations. And you're in the process of that right now, Mike. You're building your organization. So maybe we can dive into that and everything that you're working on with that project.
Yeah, I mean, I'm coaching the Violence Collision guys, right? David Ramirez's guys. Like, we've all been friends out here, right? Like, I'm sure it's everywhere, right? New York, Florida, wherever you're from, Texas. Just because we're not on the same team, we're all on the same team, right? Like, we're all from the same hood, if you will. You know what I mean? Yeah. And David, I think there was a bit of a disagreement, and it was more just sponsorship with him and the Aftermath guys. They went full HK. Violence has its own product line coming through. I think there's definitely some really heavy collaborations with JT coming down the pipeline for David and Paul. So I think it put David at a he couldn't promote one company while owning a different company. So he went on his own. Ethan Castro, there's one of their Snake guys, left with him. And then at that point, the West Coast has always had kind of an issue with, last year we had Vegas, but like this year, our closest event is Garland, Texas. Yeah. I think 4 of the 5 events are in the 3rd time zone from us, right? Like everything's East Coast. So we've always struggled to get NXL talent out there. And we have our couple pro teams, even though the Ironmen really aren't from here anymore, right? Like Jerry Caro, I think, is the only guy. Everybody else is East Coast. So then it's Dynasty, Aftermath, Impact, and Uprising way up there. We just don't have a lot of NXL guys. So David, at that point, decided to put his own semi-pro team together, and just in the process of getting all the local talent or, talent within driving distance, I think that's an interesting one after watching what Fit did. And I can testify to the Fit thing. Like when we go to USXBL, Tracy and I, we leave Sunday night. drive 24 hours straight out there. We team it. Her and I both drive. We have a 40-some foot trailer, dually truck, and I tell everybody this: we pull into Fit Monday night, right? We have JD's giving us the code. Gates open though. We pull in, and as you come around those trees into Fit, the lights are on, and they're out there running hopper ball drills, which reminds me of like when we would go play weekday ball up at
Adrenaline.
At Adrenaline, right?
Yeah.
So they're out there, and we hook the trailer. I'm out of here. Like, we're tired. We're dead from the road. Tuesday, we sleep all day. Got to go get some tape measures, nails, normal things for our setup crew on Wednesday. Go back Tuesday night to drop stuff off. So that way, Wednesday morning, my crew has everything they need to start working. Lights are on again. They're playing paintball. Then Wednesday night, they do night ball on their own field. Like, they play paintball legitimately 5-6 times a week out there. Right.
Love that.
I think all of us and the Russians, I think it's okay to say it, like the Russians are kind of emulating and I'm not saying they took it directly from Fit, but they're trying to play more paintball. Marcelo, you guys out here had a 4 or 5 man line of local guys for a minute, trying to play paintball together as many times a week as you physically could. Exactly. So it's interesting to see Fit do great with their blueprint that JD and them put together. And now the mutations that will come from that, right? Mm-hmm. Can you, like the Russians, can you play for 6 weeks in a row without hurting somebody? I think that's going to be a big one. But how do you take the Fit model that just won World Cup? You took a bunch of guys that aren't super high known in the scout world, right? Like, it's not like everybody's trying to piece that team apart, right? I think we all know Chavez would get stolen, but I mean, don't get me wrong, those dudes are they're lifers on Fit. Like, that is it's not a team. It truly is a family. Mm-hmm. But they were able to take a lot of guys that nobody really noticed and build a powerhouse NXL team, right? Like, they won World Cup. That's not a fluke. Nobody's ever
It's not a fluke. Yeah, that's what I keep saying. It's not like winning Texas or Vegas or the middle Chicago. You don't just stumble into a World Cup victory. It just doesn't happen.
Well, I don't think you stumble into any victory at the NXL pro level. Like,
some more than others.
Third, but never first. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, I think a lot of people are now looking at that model, because for many years you would bring in mercenaries, right? Like Houston Heat. We all love Sarge, period. Sarge is the most loyal team owner there is in the league. To a fault, he will stick by his guys, period. But, that whole team is from Pennsylvania, Arizona, Yayas in South Carolina. Like, they bring all these guys in. It's difficult to practice a lot together. And that's one thing we're noticing out here is the guys that are there every single weekend, you're seeing situations arise, failure and mistakes happen in points where guys come off the field and it's like, Tyler, you had this, I had this, Marcelo beat us doing this. But those reps in practice are so invaluable, because sooner or later the NXL is going to drop a double snake layout that was kind of like the one we played last weekend. And remember that one thing that we had, and we learned from it. I think a lot of us on the general manager side of things are now looking at it and like, how do we build a more local? Same with Damage, right? A lot of their guys are real local. How do you build a local team that can play as much paintball together as possible? And I think for divisional teams, that's super important, right? Like, you need to be able to get a lot of reps together, because that's what's going to get you to go up the board quicker and rank up quicker, is just getting to play paintball every weekend together.
If you want to be successful, there's no other way. You have to, if you're not going to be with your team every weekend, you had better be playing a lot of paintball on your own and still getting reps in, even with the locals, or doing whatever you can to play as much paintball and see as many situations like you're talking about, Mike. Otherwise, you're just going to get lost. You're not going to be moving at the speed that the other players are.
Well, another interesting part of it is, like, there's talent, right? Like, obviously you guys are all talented, grade A pro players, but sometimes on teams, you also need some B and C level guys and glue guys, right? And every regional team has a guy like that, I'm sure, where you're like, that kid's really good and that kid's really good, but that's the guy that, manages the madness. You know what I mean? Like, for myself, if I could just go pick up every good semi-pro player to build a great semi-pro team, you still want to have a guy or two on there where, like, if in private I was speaking to any of you, and luckily we have these conversations where you're like, what about that guy? And you're like, yeah, I totally hear you, but that's the guy that helps herd the cats, you know what I mean? Like you need somebody, and they're glue guys. I didn't realize it when I was on Aftershock as a kid, because it was the phasing out of the old guard, right? Like when I got there, we had Todd Adamson, we had Billy Saransky, we had Poopy, or we had Turd, you know, Ryan Williams, we had Danny Love, we had all those guys, and then we had all the new kids were coming in. And we wanted those guys out of there as quick as we could, right? Like, because Mike Bruno's out there with an autococker, single trigger, playing against Detroit Thunder with fully automatic guns, and you're like, Bruno, this game has passed you by, brother. The one thing we didn't realize as young guys was how important those guys were to morale and camaraderie and all of that, right? Like even like Eggs on Dynasty, whether he plays or not is not really important, but Eggs is a huge piece of that team in the sense that when, you know, Marcelo's mad or Ryan's running his mouth, you know, Eggs can kind of help bring it back to center. And we've all been there, right? Like you need that guy. You need Silent Bob.
Yeah.
You need Silent Bob.
You're so right, Mike. And you know, I definitely learned that too. We had those guys on Aftermath growing up, and through coaching,
the crazy ones.
through coaching, I've learned, and even more so, like I'll go and watch a team play for the first time that I'm assessing and going to work with. And, you know, some of the younger kids that are more fundamentally sound and talented will kind of, you know, badmouth some of the older guys on the team that might not be as good, but they don't realize the value and maturity that those players bring. And I'm like, no, you don't get it. This is kind of a glue guy. This is somebody we absolutely need as part of the organization for the culture, because all of that plays into winning. And it's an interesting thing for sure. I think every team does need that. You need players that complement one another. You need players that are there to motivate when necessary. You need others that are going to hold you accountable. You need others that are just always going to, you know, do the dirty work on the field. Like there's, you know, that's why it's called a team. You know, it's a team. It's a group of players that come together and can execute.
Absolutely. And that's part of building an organization, right? Like you gotta, and another side of building an organization is sometimes you got to recognize the guys that are cancerous. You know what I mean? Like it's a tough word to use, but they really are. You know, I refer to them as the whisperers. You know, when you're having a talk or you're having a moment of adversity and you're looking in the next guy's eyes and you're trying to, you know, get your thought process to his brain as quick as you can. And then you look beyond that and there's that teammate that's back there because he didn't get his name or number called. And instead of being a team player, he's the guy back there whispering to the next guy, but his eyes tell the story.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's very dangerous to have guys like that on a team. And I think every region has guys like that, right? Like I go to Texas and like I hear the divisional drama that's going on with certain guys. And you're kind of like, man, you want to go to those guys and be like, listen, man, I know you mean well, but how you're coming across to everybody is not well. And you're going to fucking destroy your team in the process. You know what I mean? And all of us have seen teams like that get swept into the dustbin of history because they just like the issues between the ears were the downfall of the team, the egos, right? You put 10 guys in a room and we all start talking 2-man combos. Within a minute or two, we're screaming at each other. Not because we're screaming at each other, just because we got to talk louder to get across to everybody else having these conversations. I think a team's much like that. At some point, you got to take a little bit off of it. You know, or you'll hear guys say, you know, hey, one guy. Like right now, if all three of us talk, nobody's going to be able to understand what any of us are saying. And I think teams are like that, right? Because everybody wants to get their point across. And sometimes it's just not the time or the place. You know what I mean? And also for me as a coach, GM, whatever you want to call it, a guy that's built more pro players than I think anybody else you can name, I think at some point failure is part of it. I think you have to, it's part of the process. You know who told me this was Rich Telford, right? And I think we all know if anybody, even though his team got relegated last year, if you don't think Rich Telford is one of the greatest to ever do it, you're never going to be shit in this game. You will not. Like Rich is such a smart guy. And he goes, you know, short-term, long-term goals. The short-term goal is always to win the tournament. Long-term goal is to be a championship level team. You know, don't let a short-term goal derail a long-term goal. You know what I mean? And so quickly we can have a bad point or a bad match or a bad tournament and go home like, I'm never going to play with Tyler again. And Tyler's like, I'm never going to deal with Hinman again or whoever it is. And then sometimes you just got to, you know, for me, you come home from a tournament, give it a couple days, decompress. If you have a legitimate thing to say to your teammate, talk to him one-on-one about it. There's also a time and a place, right? I'm definitely guilty of wrong time, wrong place, right message, just wrong time and place of sending it. And I think all of us have to, have empathy to the other side and understand that person's point of view. And then also you just have to realize sometimes you talk to people that just aren't smart enough to hear what you're saying. And if they don't, you're just beating your head against the wall trying to tell your teammate you made a mistake. And that's where a team gets to the end of a season and they're like, man, we may have to move on from this guy. We're seeing it in the NBA right now. The Luka trade, you know what I mean? How huge is that? We all thought it was a hoax, right? Like we all thought it was a joke. But when
it's crazy.
Whoever, put it out there, you're like, man, this is real. You know what I mean? But clearly, all of us that have played professional sports at a high level and helped construct rosters, we have to look at that move and know something in that culture was not right. And while it was going to be painful to move Luka, like they had to do it there was a reason behind that move. That wasn't a spur of the moment move. Right?
Totally.
Like all of us that understand this are like, man.
I actually think the Mavs didn't lose that deal as much as everyone's saying. I think AD with Kyrie and Clay is going to be pretty damn nice. And there's been issues with Luka's training, conditioning, and for whatever it's worth. And don't get me wrong, I like the trade as a Laker fan. I'm super excited to have Luka. But I don't think it's as bad as everyone's making it out to be.
What I think a lot of us are now thinking is we're going to see. It's kind of like the guy that goes through a breakup, right? All of a sudden he gets in the gym.
Yeah,
he's working out. He becomes a better version of himself. But unfortunately, he needed a catastrophe to happen to become a better version of themselves. And I think Luka, if this doesn't wake him up so he doesn't show up at the beginning of the season looking like a bloated sausage, I don't know what does. You know what I mean? But I think we're all thinking we're going to see a better Luka. And then we're going to think Dallas really lost in the trade if we see A+ Luka.
Yeah, Mike, I want to reiterate what you said prior to, getting into the NBA talk about just being selfless for the organization, because I think that you're hitting on something that is monumental and something that people just kind of breeze over and think that, oh, this is just the way my team is. This is the way things go and yada, yada. People make excuses left and right, but you really have to drive that home. You really have to, if you want to build a winning organization, that has to be one of those pillars at the top of the pyramid that is holding everything together. Because if you don't have that, if you don't have a selfless team, if you don't have a team that can get out of its own way and be bigger. We were in Texas this last weekend doing the combine, and I got to coach a wonderful group of players, and we won the tournament together. And the reason we won the tournament together is because we were hammering home the fact that I want you to create moments for that player. I know you want the moments. I know you want all the moments to be yours. But if you can think about that player and make him have moments or her have moments, all the moments are going to roll your way as well. And if you can turn an organization and get people thinking that way, it is going to create a different kind of cadence and energy for that squad, and you're going to get some great things out of it. But we thank you all from the bottom of our hearts for the tremendous support with the PTG show. If you are enjoying these episodes and want to help with the progress and development of this program and connect with like-minded, hungry paintball players, then head on over to ptgpodcast.com, click the orange Patreon link, and become a member of the PTG World Discord chat room. And now back to the show. It's too often just breeze over that major thing and kind of put it to the side, and dealing with all these different characters. But we've got to hammer that home if you're ever going to have a winning group together.
Absolutely. That's culture, right?
Yeah.
You got to have culture.
Absolutely.
And you're only every team is only as strong as its weakest link. And especially its weakest link that's on the field. So working together, guys like we all grew up, Mike Paxson, guys like that. Like Tyler, you were on Bob Long's Ironman. We know a couple of the names, but nobody's going to talk about Kevin or Ron or any of those guys, right?
Yeah.
But seriously, those are the guys, and that was the culture. Does Bob Long's Ironman and Pep and all that, we still see Pep being Pep.
Yeah.
But does Bob Long's Ironman win the championship in the first ever X Ball without guys that were the glue guys, the culture guys that helped build it? And probably not, right? I'm sure Wrecking Crew has a guy or two like that. That, don't get me wrong, they're capable of the moment, but they're okay not being in the moment, right? And I think on our side, building an NXL team, I have nothing to do with their NXL and WCPPL lines. I think we have guys from 4 different premier teams playing on our NXL line, and then they go back to their normal teams. But we just picked up another young kid for the roster, and it was if this kid plays every point or plays no points, he's going to feel the same about it, and he's going to be a team player about it. But if you got guys where you're like, fuck, man, if we don't put Tyler on the field, he's going to blow a gasket. That guy's got to be dealt with. You know what I mean? It's got to be team first. And it's all, for us as kids, the Aftermath kids, it was always team first. You know what I mean? But there was also a level of competitiveness in the quarterback room, or whatever room you want to call it, the Aftermath room, that everybody wanted to rise to the moment, right? So
that's right.
Teams are a funny thing, right? It's like riding a wave. Once you fall off, sometimes you can never get back on that one. Now that there's not other waves to get on, but like sometimes you're on that ride and you just got to be careful because one guy can really mess it up. And I've seen iterations of Aftermath where one guy has absolutely just made it not fun. You know what I mean? And it's tough. The first question every young team has to ask themselves is like, what is our goal? And be real about that. Like, what is our goal? Is it to win a WC, an NXL, whatever it is? Is it to be pro? Because the problem you run into is if Marcelo says yes and Tyler says yes, but I look at myself and I'm like, fuck, guys, I'm on the wrong side of 40. I'm not in the greatest shape. Like, I'm going to go with this as long, like Matt Cole. Matt Cole went with you guys as long as he could, Willie, all the guys, and then they stepped out and let everybody else go on. But I think that's an important question that a lot of divisional teams need to ask themselves is, what is our goal? Like, what is it to play?
It's the first.
Totally.
It's the first question I ask when I meet a team. I'm like, all right, let's talk about what the goals are. What's everyone's goals here? Are we on the same page or not? That without that, you're in the wrong direction.
100%. So I think that's, and realistic goals, right? You see so many teams blow apart because, we're going to go to the NXL or we're going to do this. And then they just go broke because they don't don't ever plan on winning. Like, that can't be part of the financial side of a team, right? You want to win, don't get me wrong, but don't plan on that prize money paying your next event because it's not going to happen. It's an expensive thing to do. And, in order to be successful in this game, there's a lot of sacrifice. And I think you could compare it to other sports like the UFC. Like, I'm a huge fan of Habib and all those guys from Dagestan. Like, those dudes sacrifice so much to become champions and to get their chance. Like, they don't care about the money. They're not like, and again, we all like seeing Connor and all those guys, but those dudes are the most humble people that are just truly putting in the work. And I think if guys, I think we can compare it to the fit guys. You don't see the fit guys out promoting themselves like that. You don't see and Chavez could, right? You don't see them out talking about themselves. They're just putting in the hard work behind the scenes. And if teams do that, if you're the first, just like the kids were, right? First to practice, last to leave. If you're putting in that level of time, you will have success in the leagues. I'd also say this for every young team, if you have the financial resources over time to hire different coaches, please do it. I've always said that, like, if you could get Tyler for a weekend and Marcelo for a weekend and Rich Telford for a weekend and different coaches, whoever, Joey Blute, right? I think there's so much to be learned from all these coaches in the league. And some of you guys are, are Ryan, everybody that's willing to be hired. Like, we put up a post for WC, like, hey, if you're looking for a coach, reach out. We had one team reach out. And I understand a lot of guys may not have the money, but there's so much. I can't think of another way to absorb and gain so much knowledge so quickly as this. Like, before we got on, we talked about Rich Telford. When Rich was running the Ironman 20 years ago or whatever it was, I went for a tryout there. And
did you go to Modesto?
Yep. I dropped out the first day. Because the level of conditioning and drills that he had us doing, I had never done in my life. Like, we did drills on Aftermath. This was a whole different level. But I needed it, right? I needed that long drive from Modesto down to Southern California to be looking in the mirror and looking at the guy looking back at me and be like, fuck, we got to change something here. You know what I mean? Like, and I think if young teams can bring in a coach, again, not full-time, just bring a guy in for a weekend. I really think take a weekend off of practice, take the money and hire a coach for a weekend. It's going to help you a ton. I watched like Dan Lee, which is one of Rich's assistant coaches out here in Southern California, work with younger teams at SC Village, and their ability. I mean, his team Fear won Division III last year, and we're very disciplined in the process of doing it. That's another thing that a coach, and I think he's $500 a day, but what those coaches can teach you is more than you'll learn on your own.
It fast tracks it. Absolutely. And all that time and money that you would spend trying to figure out those principles that are instilled or those secrets that we've picked up over the decades doing this is going to save you actually a lot of time and money and sweat and headache in the long run.
And I think going out to your local field, like here, ASG's got Aftermath. We're up at SC Village, Fit, wherever your field is. You know, what are they calling Central Florida now? Legacy Paintball. Jason Edwards. Like, go to those local fields where the local pro guys are and observe and absorb. Take a day.
That's right.
Just go listen to what they're saying and understand why they're saying it. You know what I mean?
Yes.
There's so much knowledge out there. And I guess I harp on it because when we were all younger, the only way we saw the knowledge was showing up to Bob Long's house. Like, I can still in my head imagine that Sunday I drove in for my tryout to Dynasty against you guys, like driving into the dirt road, seeing Kevin, you know, big ass Ron standing there. Like, but we didn't have we have YouTube. We have so much social media that's pumping great techniques and practice schedules out to guys. And some people just don't want to hear that. You know what I mean? So I find that a bit odd. If your goal is to be a championship caliber team, then this is the road you probably got to take.
Yeah.
And if your goal is to just have fun on the weekends, that's totally, I think that's for myself where one of the biggest issues comes along, right? Young guys come in and they say, I want to be a pro player. And it's like, oh, hey, man, that's cool. I got right here. Let me open the book up, page 1. You know what I mean? And if there's other guys that are like, I don't want to be a pro player, I just want to have fun playing paintball. That's a whole different book, you know? Like the way I would treat either you two and the way I would treat our buddy Matt Cole, that was an original Aftermath guy, completely different. Matt doesn't want to be a pro guy. So when we talk, we just talk about normal stuff. When it's you guys, you're held to an extremely high level. Good job, Kobe. You made 35 shots. You missed 15. Let's talk about that. Like, that's the mindset difference. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you're right, Mikey. That's spot on, dude. And just understand when you set those goals, be realistic. If you want to be pro, then understand what comes with that. If you want to have fun, which is the easier and probably the safer route, because the pro journey is not easy, and just going pro is just the beginning. You know, it took
10,000 hours. 10,000 hours to get there, 10,000 hours to stay there.
Yeah,
I
man.
truly stand by that statement. It's one that came to my head one day, and I really believe that. Like, all these guys, you know, Mark and the Uprising guys that come to our field, it's like, man, now you got to put the time in. Now we really have to hone the craft.
Yeah.
And it's
just beginning.
But also it's rewarding. Like, we've all been there. We've all won, you know, tough games, you know, games that you're expected to lose and then you surprise people. It's super rewarding. It's probably the only thing that after we get out of high school that we are tested at such a high level, because anything else in life, you can just quit. I mean, I hate to say it like that, but you can quit your job. You can quit your being a man, a mom, a dad. People do this all the time. They just walk out. In paintball, to get to that pro level, to be a pro champion, you cannot quit no matter how hard life tests you. And you have to keep pushing through it, right? And it's just, there's so many life lessons. It's funny, like Danny Parks is out at SC Village. And, you know, Danny's a good dude. He always plays with the wild cards, right? That gives you an idea. But
hey, what's he ranked these days?
A little too high for what you're thinking.
Is he?
Yeah, I think he's still D2.
Shit. How?
But, you know, like, he was talking to me and he's like, man, a lot of the stuff that you were pushing, like beating into our heads, he's like, I use it every day in life now. And I just 100%. Think it's so much.
Yeah.
Like, there's not a surprise that all of you guys that are doing the podcast and are top level pro guys are, because it's just, you have to have just a mindset where quitting is never an option.
Well, and the pain is fun. I don't know. It's like I enjoy the struggle. That's what makes it so much fun.
You're running
that statement.
Go ahead.
Yeah, that statement, how you do anything is how you do everything, is so true. If you're doing things for the right reason, at least, like, you know, maybe some people, they do things for the wrong reason. So it's not actually how they want to do something. They're just trying to cheat their way to a result, or like forge something that they, you know, that they don't really understand. But, you know, in sports, and what paintball has taught all of us here is there's a process to getting good at something. There's a process to succeeding. And actually, I think all of us here enjoy the process more than the results. I've always spoke on this, you know, when it comes in regards to when I'll stop playing. It will be when I no longer enter a season and go through the season with the actual desire to get better, because that's what I enjoy. I enjoy the hard work. I enjoy like challenging myself to see what I can improve on. I enjoy saying, okay, yeah, there was 35 shots made, but 15 missed. How the fuck can I not miss those 15 shots? Once I don't have that, then it's time to move on. It's the same thing with you. You can apply that process to anything with the podcast. It's funny, the conversations Tyler and I have about building this. It's the same way we talk about how to get better on the same team. You know, it's like, how can we, you know, improve the sound quality? How can we improve it? How can we market better? What I'm sure it's the same things that you apply to the WCPPL about, you know, improving a league. In business, it applies. In relationships, it applies, you know, and it's the process of how to get better at something.
Yeah, we were running 3-on-3s Saturday at practice, and you know, at the SE at our arenas, like we basically let everybody jump on with us. So we're doing, you know, 3-on-3s, and you're watching guys just throw bodies away, and I'm like, okay, now we're going to switch to 3-on-3 King of the Hill, right? So it's our 3 versus their 3. Whoever wins stays on that side. You always start with at least 2, but if I throw my body away, you 2 got to go win a 2-on-3 now, and if you do that, then we get the body back. And you can see guys, you know, like what's the name, Jonah from Sicarios that just made it to Uprising. Everybody's out there gassed. They're starting to like, you know, dry heave, like guys are going through it. And then that moment, that's when I said, now this is getting good. Now this is where the muscle memory comes in. Because it really does. Like when you start getting extremely tired at practice, that's where the muscle memory comes in. Yeah. Are you just fatigued and just going to throw it away? Or do you understand this is the moment you're living for, right? And now we're actually making gains on it. So, and I think tempo is a big one, right? Practice, like for the divisional guys out there, push yourself in practice. Because if you go to practice, I always say it's like going to the gym. If I grab the 20-pound dumbbells and give them a ride, probably not working out much. But whatever weight I grab that I am truly straining to get it up in the air, then I'm actually working out. Much like practice, I think you have to push yourself, right, to out of that comfort zone. And I think teams have to look at it, right? Like what can we do to make today not monotonous? We don't want to be LARPing. We don't want to be live action role playing and doing the same thing we do every weekend at practice. We need to go on YouTube. We need to watch Dynasty Dissected, whatever it is we got to do, but we actually got to go do it. You know what I mean? And you have to constantly, for me, when I go home Monday through Friday, I'm constantly thinking of what drills we can do the next weekend to put my guys in the worst place possible so that they become comfortable with the worst place possible.
100%.
Yeah, I mean, every team can do that.
Absolutely. That's always been a, you know, especially working with the divisional players and wrecking crew for the longest time. I would create drills that were so demanding, sometimes physically, but sometimes mentally, you know, put them in positions where you got to battle 2-3 guys to make a move. And they're like, this is so stupid. I did this with Lucky 15s last year at the first event. And one of the players got pretty upset, you know, already pro, already had some success. And he's like, this is so stupid. Why are we doing this? No, I'm never going to have 3 guns on me. I'm like, maybe not. But if you can get through 3 guns, I guarantee you can get through 2 or 1. I guarantee this move into the snake will be very easy, you know, so let's make it really difficult. And if you succeed in this at the tournament next weekend, it's going to be cake.
Yeah, when there's only 1 gun at you and you put them in and you're off.
Totally.
You know
totally. I mean? And sure enough, you know, the following weekend after the event, he was like, man, you were right. You know, and I was like, I've been doing this a while.
And I think that's another tough one for younger players too, is like in the moment, maybe don't question the coach, go with it. There's got to be a command and control structure, right? Coach has got to say something. And if the coach doesn't do his job, then like in every other sport, you move on from that coach, right? If consistently the coach is failing at his or her job, then you move forward with it. But it's completely counterproductive not to listen to what your coach is saying and execute the game plan. Because if you do that and it doesn't work, then you come back and you're like, hey, XYZ, I did that to a T and it didn't work. We got to work on the game plan, Bubba. You know what I mean? But if you don't do it, then it's just the player not doing his job.
And the culture's off. Yeah, that's a problem with the culture from the top down, that the parameters weren't set immediately. Like, yeah, if you have anybody on the team that is battling your coach, that's got to end immediately, because we have to be bought in at all times.
And also, if you're just on a team where guys, that negativity is floating around, you know, one of the years on Dynasty, Oliver shows up to practice and we had never really heard this word said like that, but he still says it to this day. Boost, right? We like boost each other up, boost, you know what I mean? And I'm like, man, Oliver's on another sick one, you know what I mean? But in all reality, like we've all been there, those moments of weakness, shakiness, you're not really sure, but you know, you see a teammate that's struggling, like just having a tough day, boost them up. That positivity cannot hurt anybody, right? Like rising tides lift all ships. So keep keeping it up, keeping it positive, and pushing through it, right? Those are the moments you live for. That's paintball.
That's right. And it's like, what are you going to do about it? Things are getting tough. What are you going to do about it? We're going to move in this direction. This is where we're going. If you're not on that ship, then just jump the fuck off. We'll see you later because we're going this way. You know what I mean?
Interesting too, like building this team, which is where we started, like the organization building. We brought in more than 7-8 guys, right? And it's just funny how if you set up a set of parameters, this is what we're doing. We're playing this many weekends, and this guy doesn't show up, and that guy doesn't show up, and this guy doesn't show up, and situations kind of tend to work themselves out. Some people look forward to the hard work, and other people look for excuses to get out of the hard work. You just got to figure out which one you are. And if you're the one looking to get out of the hard work, like you said earlier, you can never cheat this process. Paintball is like, don't get me wrong, everybody shoots Ryan Greenspan or Oliver Lang one time, but you're never going to consistently beat talent. And there is a lot of leeway in this game on like a guy that's a 50-50 player versus a guy like your guys that are a 99.9% player. The 50% guy will shoot you once in a while. Broken clocks right twice a day, but you're never going to consistently win against talent, guys that are truly putting the time in. And I think that's just one thing that the outside world doesn't understand about the elite athletes in this game, the guys that are doing it at the top level, the amount of time that's been put in for those guys to be those guys. Whether it's you guys, Keith Brown, Mouse, doesn't matter who it is, JC up in Canada, all across the world, the amount of time that is being put in, they never see that. They might see Marcelo's story flying into San Diego through the buildings last night, but they never understand the time and like what was the backstory. I do. I understand. I'm glad to not be seeing Mr. A's through the window of the Southwest plane as we fly into San Diego. You know what I mean? But like, they don't understand the amount of effort that it takes, and anybody can do it. That's the cool part of this game. It's achievable. It's reachable.
Yeah.
But you have to be willing.
Yeah.
Got to be willing. Yeah.
And we see you out there. We know the ones that are willing to do it. We see you putting in the work. It's cool to see all of us have put in so much time and love and care into this game. And we just pray that the future is going to be stronger than even what we're putting on for. And we do see a lot of talent out there that is really working hard. So keep it up out there because it doesn't go unnoticed.
At the combine last week, right? Like there's a lot of kids, even if they didn't.
62.
I messaged Marcelo Saturday morning to see how many guys were there. Because, for me as a league guy, but also as a guy that's super passionate about the game, how many kids are we talking about?
Mike's always asking how those are going. He's so curious about the youth of the game because obviously, it's a huge part of the game. It's a huge part. This is the next generation.
The next one is, right?
Exactly.
And he's there. 100%. He was there this weekend.
Yeah.
And it may be somebody we know, and it may be somebody we don't know. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's such a cool story, right? Like who the next one is.
Mm-hmm.
One of our guys, Evan, was there.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Evan's been coming for, I don't know, 4 or 5 years. He's the captain of the U16 team. He's probably going to play on the U19 team as well this year. The kid is just such a stud. And he has really elevated in the last couple years. We like joke about, when he steps onto the field, it's like the Terminators out there. It's like, I feel bad for anyone that's on the other side of the field.
He came to our tryouts and there was, we had a lot of guys there. There was divisional teams, there's 60, 70 people at the tryouts. So for a coach, there's no way you're watching 60, 70 people, right? You just kind of looking for some flashes here and there and then invite them back for another weekend. Correct. And Evan's out there in like low body 2 against 4 situations where he goes and peels 3 dudes off. And you're like, man, you ran through the middle of the field. That's like being a receiver in the NFL. The middle of the field is not a nice place to be. Like if they catch you slipping, you were going to get punished. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But just time after time, as a coach, I always cut the 50 line, right? Whether you're a back guy or a front guy, do you ever cross the 50? Because some guys just don't, for one reason or another, always find a reason never to get across the 50. Man, Evan's out there just like running down the field getting people. And you're like, man. And when he was a little bit younger, he was kind of pudgy faced. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. 100%.
And he it happened with my kids too, right? Yeah. Like he grew up and I'm looking at him, I'm like, I don't even know who this kid is. And they're like, oh, he's the kid. And I'm like, okay.
He was like a little teddy bear a few years ago. Not even.
I'm glad you said it because
he was a little teddy bear. I think he even
you know,
played with a fucking teddy bear on his head. We're like, Evan, we got to cut that out. You know, that shit don't roll around here.
Here's a sandana.
Yeah.
But no, and you know, like you mentioned, like Texas has a ton of kids out there that are trying, and it's interesting the different regions, right? Like Texas has a clear ladder system because there's so many pro teams that have hailed out of there, right? Whereas on the West Coast, we don't really have that ladder system. We have the WC, but we don't like even the kids, like we just don't have as much youth in California. I'm not saying we don't have any. We do have some really good young paintball players. I think every region does. But Texas is definitely hyper-focused right now. And it's also because there's so much growth. You have that Fit area. You know, Mark's doing some stuff up at Giant. Fit has been the powerhouse. San Antonio, right? X Factor's right there. And now you've got Anthony and John own Wasteland. So that triangle of Texas metropolis, Houston, San Antonio, and Dallas, I mean, there's a lot of talent out there.
Oh, it's booming.
A ton of kids out there. And you also see them on their stories, whether it's Cooper or like the outlaw anodizing kids constantly like every week they're out there working on the drills that you guys are teaching them. It's cool to see.
It is. Yeah.
60
Like I said,
kids,
there was 62 kids U16 or U19 eligible. There was actually 43 that were U16 eligible. And even the ones that aren't going to get an invite to the tryout, I was just astonished, you know, like we're talking 12 years old and kind of fearless, making moves on the snake side, on the Dorito side. Like it was really cool to see because there is absolutely a good wave of players. And
dude, I've got to shout out young Quevelar. Dude, this little kid out in Texas. You know who I'm talking about on the D side march on my team? His last name, Quevelar. He's like little mini Biggie Smalls, dude. He had the swagger. He was just,
isn't it
doing amazing.
Catheras? Was that not his name?
His name is Half Squat. He is so small, dude.
There was like three super tiny kids that were, I mean, just watching them go down both sides of the field was Carruthers. Carruthers is the one I'm thinking. He wasn't on your team. I'm thinking a different one. Yeah, I know who you're talking about. Yeah,
he's awesome.
I mean, these kids, well, the one on your team that won the MVP, you know, Warren Barker out of Florida, like kid is so young, so small, and watching him over the last couple years, the amount that he's progressed and like the fundamentals on these kids today, Mike, are I mean, they're incredible, you know.
I get to sit front row to all these games at my leagues and get to watch guys play. It's one of the coolest things ever. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Another kid I think that's going to be great out there is Cameron Blanco, right? His dad, jackpot, but just a good soul human being. You know what I mean? Like every time I talk to him, calling me sir, and I'm like, man, I'm not a cop. You don't need to call me sir. You know what I mean? Like,
for sure.
I know it's a respect level, and I totally appreciate it. But you're looking at the kid, and you're like, man, kid, like, here's my 2 cents. Just like I told Cameron last year, I was like, you know, there's a lot of kids watching you. Remember that, you know. And he never acts out of pocket. He's super respectful. But it's cool for all of us. Crazy to call ourselves older guys, but we are definitely getting there.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Watching the new kids come in, and actually in a world that is tumultuous and screwed up outside, to come into paintball and see a bunch of kids that are super respectful to the game. You know, clearly they have great parents behind them, teaching them respect and honor and things like that you would definitely want for young kids. It's definitely a breath of fresh air, right? Because we all see some videos of fights going on, paintball, like just stuff we don't need. And then you hear a situation like that where there is just so many great young players coming up through the ranks that all of us old guys, you know, we remember being those kids.
Yeah, 100%.
For me, it was when dinosaurs roam, but whatever.
Hinge, if you don't mind, we actually did squeeze in enough time, even so last minute, that some of the Discord, we got like 2 questions for you, if you don't mind.
Send it
before we let you fly. This one's great. It's from OG Cole. Mike, thanks for all you've done for the sport. What's your funniest Marcelo story from when you coached him as a youth? I remember him on Maddie's podcast saying you were a tough coach. I've got one that comes to mind that was fucking pretty hilarious, but we'll see which one you go with.
Well, there was the one time you burnt your forehead with a flat iron. That was pretty funny. And there was the time you and Mouse pissed off my brother Big Sheezy, and he was 100% going to take both of you to a graveyard in Chicago and tie you to a headstone and leave you there overnight. And listen, most of our Discord guys out there, you think this sounds like some bullshit. No, Big Sean would do that to you right now.
Oh yeah.
The guy that's coming to your house he's Dexter plus 200 pounds. So there's that story. On the field, probably my best one is when the year we took the proto deal and we're shooting the proto guns. And we had some issues with some guns. And I remember one time Marcelo's gun is broken. I mean, it's just completely solenoid, whatever's blowing out. It's not working. And Marcelo tossed it on the ground and both feet in the air landed directly on it. And I'm sitting there thinking to myself, like, man, if it wasn't working before, it for sure is not going to be working now, Bubba. I mean, he bent the frame, barrel, that thing
man.
like got hit by a train. Marcelo wasn't that heavy, but he definitely, but
it's like we shared the same bloodline, you know?
There was never any bad moments. I'll tell this to everybody out there, like the renditions, even like when Tyler was there and Tristan and all the guys, you didn't realize how special the moment was in the moment because we were so busy having so much fun in the moment that you never stopped. You know, like now as we get older, you're driving down the road by yourself, sunset, we're thinking about our kids, our missed loved ones, people that have gone, whatever. We reflect as we get older in life. When we were that young, all of us, I don't think any of us had time to reflect because we never saw it ending. You know what I mean? And I think if you were to talk to the Lords of Dogtown and the original Skate, all the different facets of every sport that we look up to, I don't think the Metal Militia guys realized how big it was until they all went their own ways and, you know, stuff like that. So for us, none of us, we appreciated the moment. We loved each other. I think every one of these guys would tell you, as much as they take me as like a tough hard ass or like, you know, giving everybody an earful, the story you'll never hear is how many of these guys have lived in my home. Kyle Spica moved from Ken Bryson's house directly to my house, lived with me for what? That's true though. Is it not 1 ounce? Lived with me for 9 months for free while he got on his feet. There's nothing I wouldn't do for any of the guys. Like if we're out at Cracker Barrel and something goes sideways, somebody was going to be in for a handful and it was going to be Aftermath coming down like a tidal wave. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like don't ever mistake some of the clips you see in the video, which are truly just clips. And of course they want to show negative emotion because it draws in people, but don't mistake the countless hours of debauchery, foolery, and just silliness that we all did, that nothing will ever come close to it. Like
great times. Yeah. I thought you were going to bring it up.
Aftermath is always a wild time. Like it is, even to the last iteration of Aftermath. I mean, having car wars with each other, having a firework war in South Carolina. Like we've done so many.
Zip tie me and Mouse back to back in those chairs in Tampa. I thought that was the one you were going to bring up. That story was pretty good.
But there's so many. So many that we did. Like, how about the time we won World Cup? I lost my wallet, left my backpack at a Wendy's with like $10,000 cash in it. Go back to the space that I left this backpack in Wendy's. A day later, the light bulb turns on, and I'm like, and I think it was PSP was the one weekend, and 7-Man was the next weekend in Miami. Yeah. I had a pile of cash because a hurricane was hitting, and we didn't know what was. I mean, it literally got devastated by a hurricane.
Yeah.
And I had this backpack full of cash just in case the cards weren't working. And I leave it at a Wendy's. Mm-hmm. And we go to the Wendy's and I'm like, there's no fucking way. Somebody took that back, 10 grand. See ya. And they hand me a detective's card. And I'm like, okay. And they're like, yeah, the backpack was returned. I call. Luckily, the guy's like, yeah, your money's in police lockup. I'm also, just for full discretion, like I'm type 1 diabetic. So I have syringes in my bag and the insulin was in my pocket. So they thought I'm selling dope. I got syringes. That night we win World Cup. The Aftermath guys, Dynasty also wins it. We go to Charlie's. I think we spent like 7-8 other grand that we had because cards were still working at that time. Somehow I took my shirt off and was waving it like a helicopter because I thought I was Petey Pablo. Lost my ID, then had to go to the police station and claim all my money the next day. It was a wild one.
That was a good.
But that's
good
what it's
bucket
all
time there.
about, man.
I mean,
That's
Mike,
it.
we almost had the
Yeah.
band back together. We were so excited. We've been talking about it for years. We were this close.
Yeah.
Yeah. You
It is
know,
what it
I'll
is.
say this.
Gotcha.
As everybody's grown older, we've all gone in our own directions. And that is human nature. 100%. There's no changing it. You know, there's some directions that some of my younger brothers have gone in that I don't understand. There's some people, Marcelo, like we didn't know who Marcelo was going to be. He was a wild asshole for a while. True or false?
True.
And then, like all of us in life, that moment of clarity hits where Marcelo has to look in the mirror, realize, hey, man, it's probably time to change this path I'm on. Not a full 180, just start working a couple degrees towards center. And if you would have said back when he was stomping on a proto matrix that Marcelo is going to be who he is today, you probably are like, I don't know about that one. And in the same light, some of the guys that we thought were on a good path have chosen other directions. And I guess for all of us, we just watch the road of life and the movie of life play itself out and see where it goes. You know what I mean? You know, when Oliver left Dynasty, we were at Hollywood Sports. Todd ran onto the field and said, this motherfucker's going to the Ironman and we're about to practice them. I didn't understand it in the moment, and I don't understand some of the moves that have been made recently. But at the end of the day, maybe with clarity and time, we all look back at it and it makes a little more sense to us. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Maybe
certainly.
it doesn't.
Yeah.
Certainly. I'm excited. It's going to be a fun year. But
It is.
Yeah, Ty, you got one last Discord question for us?
Yeah, this one's from the Bruiser, D Boyum 21 in the chat. Thanks for being here in PTG World. Mike, what are your plans for the arenas at SC Village and the future of Southern California paintball?
I mean, to play paintball, right? Like I want an area where there's no politics. You know, like I had helped build the academy team that plays at WC. They decided to stay at ASG. 100% my creation. And that's just a team and a group of guys that there can be, you know, you're an HK team. I'm a JTGI team. We want to work out together. Let's go work out together. There doesn't need to be politics. There doesn't need to be BS. I think we should all be helping each other get better. I know one thing is that if everybody shows up to practice, like at the arenas, I believe we are capable of building more talent than is needed right now. Like when everybody is out there competing at a high level, like a practice you have or Marcelo has, I believe we know the blueprint so well that we can teach younger players. And that's my goal for the arenas, right? Like to have a safe place to play. I also want to have a place, I mean, no knocking any field, but when you have one airball field, it's very difficult to get time in. At the SC arenas right now, we have 4 airball fields up. So on a Saturday, there might be 40, 50 people out there and 40 of them are on these 2 fields. You can go do drills over there.
Yeah.
And Gio's going to build another one. We're putting lights up for the summer, 2 fields of lights. So when it's a bazillion degrees out, we can play night ball and, you know, actually put the time in. But
nice.
You know, for me, I've never made $1 coaching, right? I enjoy doing this. I want to make sure, I think I'm going to be doing this until my last breath, right? Like I just cannot imagine not being involved in the game. And I, like you guys said earlier, I enjoy the process, right? And it's not about, it's funny in my league, right? Ryan made some comments that like Aftermath players not allowed to play WC has held them back. The interesting part of that Ryan is clueless about is that the conflict of interest, right? Like, seriously, if my son plays, which he doesn't play anymore, but if he did and he ever won, it would only be because that's Mike Hinman's kid. It would never be because he put the hard work in. So for me, yeah, there's young teams I work with, same with you guys. I want to see those guys win because they deserve to win. And I can say this, 17 years of running leagues, not one team has ever won on some BS. Ever. Because it's just what, like, same for us. If we knew the refs on the pro field and they could, you know, throw some calls for us. No, absolutely. I mean, I can also say I've never thrown a game. I've had games thrown against me to keep me out of a 1-0 game 2 years ago on Diesel. Get out of here, right? Like they both knew and both sides admitted they knew what they were doing. But like for us, there's no politics. I just want to have a place where everybody can come work out. And like I said, maybe your goal is not to be a pro player. You just want to have fun on the weekend. Let's work on that. You know, we have the taco killer guys that are from their pup and, all of them, like they're not trying to be the next dynasty. They just want to get better at what they do at SC Village or the Defy Factory or East Los Mafia. We have so many teams that want to get better and they come to our field to work out. That's my vision and my goal for it. And I think it should be the vision and goal for every field. Of course, fields got to make money. If they're not making money, they can't afford those $6,000-$7,000 bunker sets that we all got to buy. Crazy. But I think we need a place, and all I can do is control my little area. And, we need Texas and every other region, and I think Jason Edwards down there is doing a great job for Florida. I think Texas has a lot of great field owners, and hopefully our sport continues to see new blood. And I think that's probably one of the key parts is new blood, right? Like new field owners coming in that actually understand business, not trying to race to the bottom, and providing value to their customers. And I think that's super important. Like you go to some airball fields and it's been the World Cup layout. Fucking 3 months later, man. Can we get a new layout? You know what I mean? Like this same for us. If we went to Battle Zone, because that's where Tyler's from, every weekend Rafi changes his layouts, full disclaimer. But like if Rafi didn't, we'd kind of be like, do you really want to go play this weekend? Super Bowl Sunday, man. You know what I mean? Like, let's not. But if there's a new layout out, and some of the layouts I feel like we've put out for WC have been amazing layouts to play. And same with USXBL. If there's a new layout where you're like, I don't know about you guys, but when that NXL layout drops at noon on a Wednesday, I'm going to be standing at the field pounding 10-inch spikes into the ground, putting bunkers up, getting ready to run drills on it. We look forward to those moments. So I think if fields can keep doing that, and also making sure that first step on the ladder is very achievable. Like I'm blessed enough to be at SC Village. We have more walk-ons than anybody else. Now, how do we get the dad and son to come over? And I know the one thing, I can guarantee you this, Mountain View Paintball did a store day on the Violence Field. They rented it out. Cool. We are working with every store in the area. But even they said half of their players didn't want to come to the store day because they were afraid they were going to get beat up on by the airball players. And they had their own private field. Nobody could play with them. You know what I mean? So I think for us as an industry, it's just realizing how do we get those guys to come over and let them feel safe? Because Marcelo, you've got new teams that you're working with, right? And if those guys have to go up against the established teams, some will stay with it. Some will drop out. We cannot afford as an industry the dropout level.
For sure.
Like, hey, the endangered species, we are on the endangered species list right now as an industry. If we do not take care of every little hatchling, we're going to be in trouble. You know what I mean? And I think that's super important. And, 20 years ago, guys are with fully automatic guns just ripping dudes' heads off. And we're surprised that those people stopped playing. Like, but seriously, guys were on D-Bound 0 on their Timmies just cooking people. You know what I mean? Like, so I think for us at SC Village, that's what we're doing, right? Like there's a clear structure to the number one field. And we tell the young guys, David Ramirez is out there, end of practice. Some guys walk up, D4, D5 guys. We're running 4-on-4 drills. He let him jump on a couple. Yeah, I'm sorry, guys. You probably aren't going to play all day with him, but just running a couple of points with those guys. Every one of them messaged me Sunday night. And that was amazing. Thanks. And I think there's just a lot we can do. Where we draw that line, but as long as we're doing something moving forward, I think we're in a good spot. So that's kind of our goal for SC. I mean, we have 4 turf fields now. Gio's planning on putting the 5th one in the next month or 2 and having 2 fields of fit style lighting by summertime. So that way, when it's 105 out, we can play at nighttime and still be really productive,
Yeah.
Love
awesome,
it,
dude. I mean, Mike, I'm excited for you guys to have lights and do some midweek stuff up there and kind of have that culture. That it's a really cool thing that Fit has done. It keeps people, rather than going out and playing on the weekend and then you just put the gun down during the week and don't think about paintball until the following weekend. Like we want people to be constantly thinking about paintball and able to practice and, work on their craft. That's what keeps people, super engaged.
And like Fit's night ball, again, JD and the Fit people have done so much great for paintball. We cannot list it all. But like their Wednesday night, I believe it's around $50 and paints included. It's just hopper ball. Yeah. But I mean, go back to when we were all playing as kids and it used to be Pan Am 200 round limited 5-man. Like just having a hopper, you got to go get active.
Yeah.
You're not going to pump a lane for 10 pods and then go get active. You're going to have to get up there. But how many reps do we get now? Now we're looking at 15, 20 points in a night or whatever it is. And you're shooting 50 paintballs. You know what I mean? But those interactions, those close in fighting interactions, I think are so important. So I look forward to that. And hopefully more fields do, right? Like I know guy in Vegas, Travis Carl, took over LVPP. I think he's putting lights up on all of his fields.
Yeah.
Vegas, right? You kind of have to. $120 out there in the summer.
Yeah.
But like I think there's, again, we're coming out of this. We're in this thawing period from the election year and all that. And I'm hoping we see some growth, right? And
paintball is trending in the right direction.
Doing it. You know, it's just tough where you go to like where you're at, where there's only 2 real airball fields and 3. Disruptive has one down there in Tucson, but there's only 3 airball fields in the whole state. That's difficult, right? Like you think if we don't get some growth out there.
Yeah. Well, the community is definitely working really hard, and Roth actually has the lights up on the field as well. So during the summer, like you were saying, got to have that.
You have to, right? Anywhere that it's hot. I mean, here, Texas, I remember when I was with Diesel, I was watching the news at practice one night in my hotel room, and they're like, this is the 100 whatever straight day of triple digits. And you're like,
yeah,
like, people just can't, their bodies cannot take that kind of heat on the turf, right?
No,
that's when that turf's sitting at like 120, 130. It's just too much. So
now we start at like 6 a.m. in the summertime, and we'll be done by like 10 a.m. or even earlier. Sometimes people are starting at 5 a.m. Done at 10.
And we're totally open to do all that at SC too, right? Like whatever, because if you go super late at night on a hot day, it's still going to be warm. Coldest point is the earliest point of the day, so it makes sense, But
yeah,
I think our industry is working on it. I think it's just tough when margins are going like this. It becomes difficult for all the big guys, HK, GI, Eclipse, all the big cornerstones of our industry to do much when revenue's decreasing. So I think that's, but
so,
I do believe, our league, I mean, we continue to see growth, right? And I think that's because we're realistic on our pricing structure, right? Like I think it'd be cool to drive a Ferrari to the field. Just not many of us can afford it.
Ain't that the truth? Yeah. We got to keep that funnel, bringing players to the local parks, and really focus on funneling as many people as possible with our socials and just good word of mouth, right? And good energy to keep people coming to the local parks, and it'll continue to grow. But paintball is definitely trending in a nice trajectory right now as we sit here in February, and we'll keep
think for all those new players, when they get to meet one of you guys or whoever it is, such a big deal. So I think for as many of our top end guys that can, take 10 minutes out of their day and just go talk to somebody, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
I mean, I can tell you when I was young, getting to have those my dad was a machinist at die, so I got to see these guys coming through. And, it was cool to get to meet all these big names, you know what I mean? And for us, making that contact may help keep them doing what we're all doing. Also, it grows fans for teams, but it keeps them in the sport, right?
Yeah.
When Tyler's out at BKW, I guarantee you all those dudes are telling me, hey, man, pole position guys, man, Tyler was out here, man. He's such a good dude. Yeah, man, he's a real one. So
you got to keep cultivating.
So much we can do everywhere.
That's it. And everyone's got to care, top to bottom. We got to care and do the extra work. If we keep doing that, we'll be all right. We'll keep cultivating it.
Because as an industry, we can't just put the open sign up and expect people to rush in. At some point, we're going to have to put the open sign up and step out the front door and shake some hands and meet some people and invite them in.
Straight up. Yep. Well, Mike, we love you, man, and thank you for taking the time to chill with us. Always an honor to have you on the show. Yeah, dude, straight up.
I think at this point I'm probably the 3rd member, correct? Like I had to have more shows than anybody else.
Yeah, I think you actually do.
Yeah, it's between you and Tom. Yeah, it's between you and Tom for sure. Yeah.
Tom needs to get on your show and drop more info too.
Yeah, maybe come on before you want to change all the division names, but we sorted that out.
Oh my goodness.
Oh my goodness.
I'm just sitting back on my phone, sitting on my couch right over here, watching TV, just reloading the comments like.
Oh, yeah, reloading the comments. Yeah, that was a good one.
If Tom stole $20 bills for $5, people would still be mad at him. Let's also put that out there. No matter 100%. What Tom does, he's catching hand grenades.
100%.
And y'all are legends.
Yeah,
everybody. Yeah, for holding down the game.
Yeah. Anytime, man. I'll see you guys out of the field. So I think I'll see you next Saturday.
Yes, sir.
Well, I might be stuck in Vegas. That'll be the only reason I'm not out there. And it was supposed to be Sunday. It's supposed to be Sunday, not Saturday.
All right, Sunday. Our whole line's going to be there. Tyler, if he
Okay.
doesn't show up, you're going to have to come out here, bring some boys.
You got it. You got it. You know I'll be there. Let's go.
I will say this: the next weekend that I'm at a field here in SoCal, it will be the arenas. So guarantee that. But yeah,
Come on down.
Come
boys.
out.
come on down. All right, Hans,
well,
we
you guys have
appreciate
a
you,
good
brother.
day, man. Thanks for having me on the show,
Yeah,
and
of course.
everybody out there. Thanks for tuning in, and I appreciate everybody out there, man.
Let's go, Mike. Thank you. Peace.
All right, everybody. Thank you guys so much for tuning in and listening to the show. We appreciate your support more than you know. As you guys heard about midway through the episode, if you guys would like to support PTG in any way, you could head over to ptgpaintball.com. You could click the orange Patreon link and sign up at any level and get access to our Discord. The Discord is one of the most phenomenal communities in the game of paintball. We have so many different channels in there. It's great for learning. It's great for connecting, finding teams, selling equipment, whatever it is you want to do in there. We truly have it all, and we hope to see you in there. So again, head over to ptgpaintball.com, click the orange Patreon link, and we will see you in there.